Well, good morning, everyone. Mark Westcott here. Leanne will be joining us in a couple of seconds, and just waiting for everyone to giving a couple of minutes to just get settled. I hope you've printed out your copy of the scorecard. It's just on the right-hand side here. There'll be a link for you to download that scorecard just before we get started. It's not imperative you have it if you haven't got a printer, but just handy if you've got a copy there as we're going through. So as I say, if you can just stand by and just give it a couple of minutes and wait till we've got a couple more people on board, and then we'll get started. Anticipating it should be about 35-40 minutes, the seminar today. If that helps you in regard to your plans. I've had a couple of emails before the webinar, so thank you for your kind comments, and yes, those topics that you've raised will be covered in today's session. And if I'll say this again when I get going, but just if there are a couple of bonuses if you wait till the end. As I say, should be about 40 minutes from 35-40 minutes from now. A couple of bonuses, one from each of Leanne and myself. So I hope you find those valuable. Will just be a couple of minutes, another 10 seconds or so. We'll see if we can get this technology working. Okay, we'll be with you in a second.
Hi everyone, I'm Leanne Mathewson, Director with Murdoch Lawyers and based in Toowoomba. I'm really pleased that you've joined us today, as I'm keen to share with you some information and give you some insight into how we go about working with farming families to achieve great estate and succession planning results. But before that, we're going to hear from Mark. Mark Westcott has collaborated with us at Murdoch Lawyers for a few years now, and it is really rewarding to think and reflect back on the outcomes that we've been able to achieve for a great many number of farming families right across Australia. I'm sure you will enjoy Mark's presentation.
Thanks, Leanne. I found in my 35 plus years of involvement in this area, most people are in the same boat. So I'm not calling people out for not having this stuff sorted. I'm not judging. And fact is, most people are just like you. There's sometimes a little embarrassment around not having fixed this, but the truth is, most people don't know where to start, who to talk with, or what to do. Plus, they don't know what they don't know, and many times communication between the generations is difficult. That's proved beyond doubt. When I was first married many years ago, I felt some shame I hadn't fixed this stuff myself. In fact, I'm a lot like many of you. However, learning what I did, I was quickly able to transform from shame to pride in what I had in place for my family. I made sure all was in place for them should something happen to me. I called on the specialist and got it fixed. So today is about helping you with specialist advice and with the opportunity for questions near the end. And our seminar is just a short 35-40 minutes of valuable content. And please stay to the very end. Leanne and I have two bonuses for those who participate in the whole event. We have two valuable gifts valued at around $1,000 in total if you hang around until the end, about 36 minutes from now. I hope this will create some real value and some options for you. I deal with rural families and others all around Australia and New Zealand, and basically everyone has the same issues. I just want to say today, if at any time during the full presentation you feel like you want to have a chat privately about something specific, anything personal, any personal questions you might have, just click on the link over on the right hand side to book a free cup of tea and a chat with me. No commitment or obligation, I'm just happy to help if I can. Let me start with some experiences which have really shaped my passion for what I do. In September 2007, I received a phone call which would change my life forever. A very close schoolmate of mine was killed in a commercial air tragedy. A rush to get away for the weekend, a cheap ticket, a cheap airline, and an out-of-hours pilot taking risks which didn't pay off. And it put an end to my buddy's life. He left behind a wife and 4 children. I had to organise the funeral, the service, and perform the eulogy, and 4 kids in private school. They were living in a beautiful house, and yet he had an out-of-date will, not enough life insurance, and he hadn't given thoughts as to what the family should now do without him around. Time after time I tried to get Brian to do something to get his stuff sorted, but he always put me off. There was always something more important or pressing, like a game of golf. And I know it wasn't my fault, but I carried guilt for years. I should have tried harder. I should have forced him to do something. But at what cost to our friendship? And since then, others have passed away well before their time. Bronwyn, Con, Dennis, Shane, Sharon, and others. And not one died of old age. For most these days, we've done a great job in getting their stuff sorted before the unexpected happens. And times run out before they treat what I do with priority. And I still get grief occasionally from existing or potential customers. They say I'm too enthusiastic, but they have a delusion of invincibility apparently, and based on my life experiences, I care too much. I've seen the other side and how it pulls families apart, and I'd never want that to happen to you or to your family. You know, even back before Brian, my first experience in losing a client was way back in 1979, and it also changed my life. The clients were a young jackaroo, his wife Bronwyn, and a baby boy. The young man died in a tragic horse accident. And sure, the planning I'd done would provide the money, but she had no idea where to go, who to talk with, how to look after the money, and most importantly, who to trust. This beautiful young mum had herself, a baby, and some money, but she was lost. And that's why I've devoted my life to helping people get this stuff sorted, to make it easy for those left behind. And remember, it's them, not you trying to make sense of all your stuff after you've gone. So that's where the breeding ground was. That's where I formed the Rural Succession Solution, a structured way to create certainty, confidence and security for those left behind. I designed a way to quickly construct with pride an estate or a succession plan from scratch with zero grief within 90 days, without wasting your valuable time or money, and all done in conjunction with your absolute specialist advisors. A way to keep your loved ones safe, to bypass emotional paralysis and ensure your family doesn't squabble or break apart over silly things like money. So let's look at a couple of examples of how different every family is, yet it's often really the same fundamental issues. Earlier this year I flew out west to see a rural family. It was a 5-hour flight in my little Cessna, and when we sat down around the table, in 15 minutes I knew exactly what needed to happen to create real certainty, confidence and security for every member of the family. And that's my skill. The grandparents didn't even come out of their house while I was there, and they don't discuss this stuff evidently. The father, one of 4 kids, also owns some of the property, and he seems unconcerned about what's going to happen when he and mum get divorced soon. The son, one of 3 children, and his wife, now the mother of the great-grandson, well, he spent years on the property since he left school, and Dad won't give him any certainty or involvement, so he's wondering if he should head back to the big smoke. But he loves it out there on the property. It's his home. Also, Dad and Granddad don't take advice from anyone but their accountant, and he doesn't want to rock the boat by starting this conversation. So I sat around the table with Mum, Dad, son and the daughter-in-law, and in 15 minutes I'd sorted out how the farm could pass down to the son and subsequent generations, and all the other siblings would be taken care of. Creating the plan as an outsider is what I do. And even though I could fix all of the many issues in a flash for them, Dad was just too busy with sheep work and didn't want to face the issues. But luckily, the son pushed it and he forced the issue, and now we're on the way to getting it all sorted. So after that, I travelled over to New Zealand to chat with some sheep farmers, and first to chat with Mum and Dad to understand their intentions, and then off to speak with each of the the 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. And sometimes there's attitude between siblings for no good or logical reason, just because of, something which might have happened when they were in nappies maybe, who knows. But regardless, conflict between siblings is just as toxic as conflict between the generations. And what has been proved again is you can't solve these issues within the family. It takes an independent facilitator from outside the family to break through the family conflict. And I find that when speaking individually with family members, they turn up with manners, logic and honesty. So if you're struggling with conflict between siblings or the generations, well, that's what I do. I sort them out. I create family consensus and harmony. That's my skill. And in this case, I was able to break through the family conflict, and we're now almost finished putting all the plans together with sign-off from the kids. So that's how I help people. Our facilitation process will save your family's life. More later about how we work. First, who am I? And these days it's more difficult to catch up face to face with new friends. Therefore, my handshake for people who don't know me well is a website we have created for people to get to know who I am as well as what I do. And the website's markwestcott.com. It's not intended as a sales page, just a getting to know you page, markwestcott.com. So my role is to help people create extraordinary legacies, and I want to help you to be a hero for your family. So let's discuss the scorecard that you've got in front of you. I hope you've got a copy in front of you right now. Scorecard, how to avoid an absolute squabble over the farm after you've gone. We all know families who have fallen apart after a parent dies. The children squabble, they fight over money, they contest the will, and they never talk with each other again. It's so sad. And deep down, we just know we have a responsibility to prioritise getting this sorted for those we love and care about. And these questions will show you a way to check bad stuff doesn't happen to your family. But for now, as I said before, I want to help you, and I want to help you be a hero for your family. I want to make sure your kids still get together at Christmas as friends, and they don't have a Barney contest the wills or such. So let's go through these questions on the scorecard, and I hope you've got that in front of you. Let's look at the 10 fundamental questions to see if you have this covered or not. So here they are. How to avoid an absolute squabble over the farm after you've gone. First area we're looking at is protecting your wealth. So question 1, you know all the questions relevant to your family which relate to taxation and legal aspects of creating a fair estate plan. Well, this really covers all the issues of the unknown unknowns. For most people, unless this area is your specialty, there will always be the many things we don't even know we don't know about. So unless you're well versed at tax law and all the legal issues involved in estate planning, it's hard to tick yes here. There are just so many layers here, and it's near impossible to know it all. That's why we rely on specialists in all areas, and it's a good starting point for you to think as well, I think. So a good chance is this is going to be a no for you. Question 2. You have established wills, which include asset protection, that is testamentary trusts, to ensure wealth is not forfeited from children's failed marriages and bankruptcy, premature death, and so on. Testamentary trusts may often be discussed, but they are a rare find in wills. Many solicitors take the easy way out and don't include them, or clients want the least cost option with the same result, and that's not going to happen. And if you're not sure you have one, it's a safe bet you don't. Also, the courts are changing their attitude depending on how the trusts are structured, so even if you have one, there is a good chance it needs updating. This one inclusion in your wills could be the difference in hundreds, if not millions of dollars of estate disappearing to ex-sons or daughters-in-law. If you're not sure, then it's a no. Question 3. You know exactly how to start your estate and succession planning process and who you need to involve to ensure your best result. Look, many well-meaning accountants will tell you they'll get it all sorted, even ones who are your best mate or friends from uni. They'll tell you you don't need to talk with anyone else, and I'll be brave here and suggest that that means about a 99.5% chance in 12 months' time nothing will have been sorted. Firstly, accountants can't give legal advice, and secondly, what they're really doing is just wanting to keep a fence around you, as they don't want you talking or taking advice from anyone else sometimes. And if those two things aren't true, well, you still won't have a will in 12 months' time regardless. As well, over 97% of lawyers are just GPs when it comes to estate planning, meaning only 3% are actually specialists. And if you have an estate of over 5 million, then make sure you only see the 3% of specialty lawyers. So unless you know how to find one of those rare beasts, better put down a no. Question 4, and this is the start of Area 2, Open Family Communications, question 4. You have ensured open and regular communication with your spouse and your children, and you have regularly discussed the estate and succession planning topic. In many cases, this is about the same probability as finding a unicorn. Having said that, in some families this has happened, and the thing to watch out for here is that if Dad is the one running the meetings, then there's a good chance the children may be scared to say what they're really thinking. So there could be a lot of head nodding, but maybe not everyone's on board. And if you've had an outside person come in and hold the meetings privately with all the parties individually, then together as a group, then you can tick yes. Otherwise, it's probably a no. Question 5. You know exactly how to create fairness between your children, and this has been communicated with each of them. Well, many people try their best to attain equality between family members. However, it's not always fair. Fair doesn't necessarily mean equal. One child may have invested time, effort, and capability regarding building the family business or the asset. Another may have already taken an early inheritance by asking for a leg up in other areas, such as a business start or a home deposit. And in all situations, it's important to have a distribution strategy with children, but also the conversation to ensure they understand when the time comes. Question 6. You know exactly what your children's plans are for the future, and you are not experiencing any communication issues with them or their spouses. Well, as time goes on and children are married or form strong relationships, it can be imperative to have open communications with them, especially in regard to their interest in the family business or such. A lack of communication on your part can lead to confusion, other alternative plans by them due to not knowing what your intentions are, and so on. Area number 3, let's look at family harmony. Question 7. You have had facilitated conversations, including with your spouse and your children, to ensure there is thorough understanding of your plans. Well, silence can lead to children leaving the farm and heading elsewhere to make a future, or it can lead to resentment and conflict because they feel they're working towards something but they have no certainty of achieving anything. Maybe you have plans, yet you haven't communicated them properly, you haven't had the conversation. And in either case, unless you have been really specific and have had sufficient conversations, no is the answer here. Question 8. You have attained consensus between all parties to ensure the risk of contested wills is negated. Well, as I mentioned before, many of the communication and potential conflict issues can't be solved from within the family. If you have had conversations regarding your plans and have asked for consensus yourself, you may find the silence or the lack of discussion from your children stems from the respective family order. Children may not feel it is their place to argue with mum or dad. This is where the role of an external facilitator comes in. We can have those hard discussions with and attain the truth from children. This is imperative if you really want to ensure wills and plans are not contested. If you have not hired an outsider, you should answer no. Question 9. You have in place a fully documented and funded plan which creates absolute lifetime certainty for your spouse, as well as financial security where required. Look, you may be cruising along feeling everything is okay and tied together with a delusion of invincibility and the tendency to defer action in this area. Look, it's a fatal combination if you want to guarantee certainty and financial security for your spouse and for your family. If your plans are not out of your head and written down and validated by your accountant or whoever, then this is a no here. Your closest are relying on your care and attention to this area, not just you thinking it's going to be okay. Question 10. You have put in place the necessary protections and documented process to guarantee your dreams and wishes are followed for the benefit of your family. Well, following on from the last question, this is more on the human level. Have you nominated your funeral intentions? Is it written down? Buried? Cremated? Where? Which church or not? Where to spread your ashes or lay you to rest? And what words would you never want left unsaid to those you love? Do you need the instructions given for when you're gone? What are your final wishes? What will give them strength? So that's the 10 questions. I hope they got you thinking. And how did you go with those questions? There's a survey on the right for you to complete, and I'll just give you a second to mark your score. And I can't tell who writes what, so it's confidential, I think. Look, in summary, I'm not sure if in my lifetime I've ever met anyone who, before working with us, could answer yes to any more than 2 or 3 of those questions. Well, not if they were telling the truth anyway. So don't feel bad about your score. It's actually normal. But now you have the opportunity to do something about the preparedness for the inevitable. And now is not the time for further procrastination. Also, as I said, if you have written questions in the chat box on the right-hand side, we'll try to get to it today, and otherwise we'll send you an email, and I hope that's okay. Next in this webinar, you'll be hearing from a specialist estate and succession planning lawyer, Leanne Mathewson. I'll introduce her in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to say now she's not a GP lawyer. She is a specialist. I like to use the analogy, if you had a brain tumour, you wouldn't go to your GP, you'd get specialist advice. And same with your estate. You have significant wealth, so it needs significant advice. So you may ask, what is my role? Well, I'm the facilitator in this whole process. I bring the parties together when they are needed, your existing professional advisors and so on, and I bring it all together and focus on all the human elements as well. I have a process to get this sorted, and followed up to make sure it gets done. In a bit more detail, you could ask, what am I primarily focused on here? Well, simply put, my focus is when something happens to you. I have 3 priorities. First, your wife and mother of your children is okay, both financially and regarding her future needs. Secondly, your hard-earned family prosperity is protected from children's failed marriages, sons, daughters-in-law, bankruptcy, and anything else we can protect it against. Thirdly, your children will still get together at Christmas as mates and not contest wills or fight or squabble over silly things like money. And that's my promise. And just so you know you're in the right place here, this strategy reflects the exact steps we use with our 300 plus clients, and also many of the country's most successful rural families use these strategies. In short, this is the stuff which works, and over the years we've been involved in implementing succession plans and estate plans for rural business owners and others, which cover now well over $2.5 billion worth of farms, properties and estates. Many people say we know our stuff and we do a good job. Plus, I grew up on the land, so I understand the issues and I've been through them myself. Plus, I speak your language. As I said before, please go to markwestcott.com to get to know me a little bit better if you need to. Many times people ask, what are the big issues that we deal with? So I'd be interested in your thoughts. Let's talk about the 3 most common problems rural families face. Firstly, communication. It's the biggest issue, is the lack of it between the generations. Secondly, conflict, and mostly due to bad communication and lack of direction for the younger ones. And thirdly, not knowing where to start, what to do or who to talk with, and they are all the areas where I come in. The key step here in our process is around creating family harmony, direction and confidence around the future for your family, and breaking down the communication barriers and eliminating the conflict. What we do is open up the conversations and have the discussion as an outsider with your family. I find you can't solve these issues from within the family. You need someone from outside to see what can't be seen from within. And our conversation with the next generation around gratitude has actually proved game-changing. Mostly we help you uncover the unknown unknowns. And putting this into context, that's just one step in our 9-step process to enable a harmonious rural succession solution. Our total process looks like this. And you can take a minute and you can download this process, the map, and then you can look at it as we move ahead. So we start with a chat and we work our way through establishing the burning issues. We do a due diligence, make sure there's family harmony, a fair distribution, protecting your wealth and so on, and a thorough process to ensure your peace of mind. If looking further at this is of interest for you, the next stage is to go ahead and book that free strategy call or conversation, a cup of tea with us, to get you clear on how this applies to your specific situation and find out if and how we can help you quickly to get things sorted. This call won't cost you a penny and there's no obligation. And you could ask, why am I offering free strategy calls or meetings? Well, it's simple. Because a high percentage of people, rural people we speak with, end up working with us to help them to achieve results. But it's okay. For other people, we're not a fit, and that's okay also. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, regardless. There's no pressure. However, please take advantage of the free call. At least either way, you'll have peace of mind that you've started to get it all sorted. So as I said before, I help people create extraordinary legacies. And I want to help you be a hero for your family. Whatever you do regarding taking actions on my suggestions, it's not going to change my life, but it might make a huge difference for you and for your family. So let me help you with your family communication and get the conversation started. Thanks for listening to my presentation today. I hope it's created some value for you and some options for you. I deal with rural families and others all around Australia and New Zealand. And as I said before, we all have the same issues. Let me now hand over to Leanne Mathewson of Murdoch Lawyers in Toowoomba. Leanne is the lawyer who you should talk to if you don't like dealing with lawyers. Her clients tell me that she's easy to work with and good at simplifying things which sometimes can just seem so complex at first. And having grown up on a dairy farm, she's passionate about giving farmers, graziers and all rural people and their families relevant information so that they're empowered to make informed decisions about their present and their future. Here's Leanne.
Thanks, Mark, for that very kind introduction, and thanks to you for joining us on our webinar. For most people, estate and succession planning is a very personal project, and for some, it can be very confronting. So, if you have made the big decision to seek help from someone outside your family to help you navigate this process, it only makes sense that you want to be working with someone who is trustworthy and who is easy to talk to. But probably just as important is that you be working with people who are really interested in this area and who have the runs on the board, who do this work day in, day out, week in, week out. And that's what Mark means when he says that it's important that you work with a specialist. A specialist not only owns the right toolkit for the job, but has the knowledge and experience to know which tool should be used in which situation. When it comes to a legal advisor who specialises in estate and succession planning, though a lot of the tools in their toolkit will look very similar, a bit like the sockets in this socket set, the truth is that a solution which is a great fit for one family will be unhelpful and perhaps even damaging for another family. A specialist who does this type of legal work every day knows the difference. But first, it is really important that your advisors understand what is your desired outcome. What is it that you are trying to achieve? And that's where the work that Mark does is invaluable. He helps people to clarify their thoughts and put down in some level of detail what the legacy they wish to create will look like. But from there, we need to start creating a legal framework which will ensure that your wishes will be actioned and fulfilled with the least amount of stress and without any unnecessary tax being paid along the way. And that is where one of our tools comes in very handy, the estate and succession planning due diligence. This is a review of your affairs in terms of existing legal documents and financial statements to determine who owns what and how. Depending on your circumstances, the due diligence review might involve us looking at legal documents like trust deeds, partnership agreements, leases, and company constitutions. It can also be very important to check land ownership records, as well as the structure of bank loans and related party loans. Probably the easiest way to explain why this can be very important is to give you a very simple example. If the intention is to give the farm to Tom and the rest of the estate to Lucy, a will which is written in that way could be completely defective if in fact the farm is not owned by an individual but is in fact owned by a company, particularly if the shares in that company are owned by the will maker. Because what we've done in giving the rest of the estate to Lucy is we've given her the shares in the company which owns the land. And that would be an unintended consequence which could have been avoided by a proper due diligence process. So that's just one example of how due diligence can be an important step in this process. There are plenty of others which I'm happy to share with you either offline or during the Q&A session at the end of this presentation. For now, let's move on to other unintended consequences that can arise from a homemade will or from an estate plan that has been written by a lawyer who does wills on the side but is not a succession specialist. And that's where the distribution matrix comes in. This is a process of documenting on one piece of paper the end game in terms of the distribution of your wealth amongst your family members in the way you intend. And just as importantly, it shows the net value of each person's legacy or inheritance. I used the word net here very deliberately because the current market value of certain assets or the current market value of primary production assets compared with off-farm assets does not give a true picture of the end result of your plan. In the distribution matrix, we look at what debt sits with which assets, and just as importantly, how debt might need to be restructured across several assets so that one beneficiary is not necessarily left with all of the debt. As well as debt, the distribution matrix looks at what tax might be attached to certain assets. Obviously, an asset that is exempt from capital gains tax because it's the family home or because it was acquired before 1985 will have no tax attached to it if and when it is sold. Whereas other assets that will attract capital gains tax if sold, that tax has an impact on the net value of an inheritance. Understanding the net result of your plan and your preferred distribution of assets allows you to reality test that plan. In your heart of hearts, is this really what you want to see be the end result? And do you see that as being a fair outcome overall? Or is there some adjustment needed, either now or over time. The distribution matrix can also be very helpful in ultimately explaining the plan to your family members and for everyone to see that you do understand the consequences of the plan and it does truly reflect your wishes. The other piece of information that I really want to share with you today is about the potential benefits of incorporating testamentary trusts into your wills. A lot of people don't appreciate that under a standard or simple will, an inheritance will be lost if the beneficiary is made bankrupt. And nowadays, it is not just people who can't manage credit card debt who end up bankrupt. Reputable people can easily be sued by an unhappy supplier, contractor, employee or customer and end up bankrupt through no fault of their own. Similarly, under a standard will, an inheritance will be lost or split up if that beneficiary separates from his or her spouse. For some people, these sorts of outcomes do not concern them at all. For others, that scenario worries them a lot and can in fact lead them to thinking that they should write their will to skip a generation and leave it all to the grandchildren. We are all different and have been shaped by our own life experience. But if you are concerned in any way about these sorts of issues or want to ensure that an inheritance can be managed tax effectively, then you need to seriously consider incorporating testamentary trusts into your wills. I hope you have found this information to be helpful. If you'd like more detail about any of the topics that we've covered, or if you would like a second opinion on your current will, please get in touch with me. For all our webinar attendees, I'm happy to provide a second opinion on your current will for free. No obligation at all, just a great opportunity to have it reviewed by a specialist. Hopefully everything is as it should be, but on worst case scenario, if there are things that are not quite right, it is much better to know that now while you have time to do something about it. Thanks for watching today. Back to you, Mark.
So thank you for your participation today. Leanne and I promised to provide 2 bonus gifts valued at around $1,000 total for you. Firstly, Leanne has offered to complete a full second opinion of your existing will and your documentation. And I have offered a free 30-minute starter call to get you on track and create a project list for you to start creating your own peace of mind around this subject. Just register by typing gifts in the box or anything in the bottom right of the screen, and that will send me an email. So I'll get both the gifts sorted for you. And if you want to take this further and start work with me to really dig deep into the strategies and the conversations, just type START and I'll send you a link for details on our $997 90-minute starter session. All the details will be on the web page of the link that I send for you. So just to clarify, there's a box at the bottom right of the screen which will send me an email with your questions or requests. Just type in gifts or start or both and I'll get to work sorting out delivering these for you. Maybe just add your phone number thanks to the note just to make it easier for us to communicate. Look, today's been great and thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you at future seminars or talking with you further, and hopefully that will be again soon. Cheers, I'm Mark Westcott and thanks also to Leanne Mathewson.